Louisiana, Louisiana Creole, Eliacute de la Louisiane, is a state located in the southern region of the United States. Louisiana is the 31st most extensive and the 25th most populous of the 50 United States. Its capital is Baton Rouge and largest city is New Orleans. Louisiana is the only state in the U.S. with political subdivisions termed parishes, which are the local government's equivalent to counties. The largest parish by population is East Baton Rouge Parish, and the largest by land area is Plaquemines. Louisiana is bordered by Arkansas to the north, Mississippi to the east, Texas to the west, and the Gulf of Mexico to the south. Much of the state's lands were formed from sediment washed down the Mississippi River, leaving enormous deltas and vast areas of coastal marsh and swamp. These contain a rich southern biota. Typical examples include birds such as ibis and egrets. There are also many species of tree frogs, and fish such as sturgeon and paddlefish. In more elevated areas, fire is a natural process in the landscape, and has produced extensive areas of longleaf pine forest and wet savannas. These support an exceptionally large number of plant species, including many species of orchids and carnivorous plants. Some Louisiana urban environments have a multicultural, multilingual heritage, being so strongly influenced by a mixture of 18th-century French, Spanish, Native American, and African cultures that they are considered to be exceptional in the U.S. Before the American purchase of the territory in 1803, the current Louisiana state had been both a French colony and, for a brief period, a Spanish one. In addition, colonists imported numerous African slaves as laborers in the 18th century. Many came from peoples of the same region of West Africa, thus concentrating their culture. In the post-Civil War environment, Anglo-Americans increased the pressure for Anglicization, and in 1921, English was made the only official language of the state. Louisiana has more Native American tribes than any other southern state, including 4 that are federally recognized, 10 that are state-recognized, and 4 that have not yet received recognition. Etymology. Louisiana was named after Louis XIV, King of France from 1643 to 1715. When René Robert Cavelier, Sieur de la Salle claimed the territory drained by the Mississippi River for France, he named it La Louisiane. The suffix "ana" is a Latin suffix that can refer to information relating to a particular individual, subject, or place. Thus, roughly, Louis plus Ana carries the idea of related to Louis, once part of the French colonial empire. The Louisiana Territory stretched from present-day Mobile Bay to just north of the present-day Canadian border, and included a small part of what is now southwestern Canada. Geology. The Gulf of Mexico did not exist 250 million years ago when there was but one supercontinent, Pangaea. As Pangaea split apart, the Atlantic Ocean and Gulf of Mexico opened. Louisiana slowly developed, over millions of years, from water into land, and from north to south. The oldest rocks are exposed in the north, in areas such as the Kissaki National Forest. The oldest rocks date back to the early Tertiary era, some 60 million years ago. The history of the formation of these rocks can be found in D. Spearing's Roadside Geology of Louisiana. The youngest parts of the state were formed during the last 7,500 years as successive deltas of the Mississippi River, the Maringoan, Teca, St. Bernard, Lafourche, the modern Mississippi, and now the Atchafalaya. The sediments were carried from north to south by the Mississippi River. In between the tertiary rocks of the north, and the relatively new sediments along the coast, is a vast belt known as the Pleistocene Terraces. Their age and distribution can be largely related to the rise and fall of sea levels during past ice ages. In general, the northern terraces have had sufficient time for rivers to cut deep channels, while the newer terraces tend to be much flatter. Salt domes are also found in Louisiana. Their origin can be traced back to the early Gulf of Mexico, when the shallow ocean had high rates of evaporation. There are several hundred salt domes in the state. One of the most familiar is Avery Island. Salt domes are important not only as a source of salt, they also serve as underground traps for oil and gas. Geography. Louisiana is bordered to the west by Texas, to the north by Arkansas, to the east by the state of Mississippi, and to the south by the Gulf of Mexico. The surface of the state may properly be divided into two parts, the uplands of the north, and the alluvial along the coast. The alluvial region includes low swamplands, coastal marshlands and beaches, and barrier islands that cover about 20,000 square miles. This area lies principally along the Gulf of Mexico and the Mississippi River, which traverses the state from north to south for a distance of about 600 miles and empties into the Gulf of Mexico, the Red River, the Washita River and its branches, and other minor streams. The breadth of the alluvial region along the Mississippi is from 10 to 60 miles, and along the other rivers, the alluvial region averages about 10 miles across. The Mississippi River flows along a ridge formed by its own natural deposits, from which the lands decline toward a river beyond it, an average fall of 6 feet per mile. The alluvial lands along other streams present similar features. The higher and contiguous hill lands of the north and northwestern part of the state have an area of more than 25,000 square miles. They consist of prairie and woodlands. The elevations above sea level range from 10 feet at the coast and swampland to 50 and 60 feet at the prairie and alluvial lands. In the uplands and hills, the elevations rise to Driscoll Mountain, the highest point in the state, at only 535 feet above sea level. Besides the navigable waterways already named, there are the Sabine, forming the western boundary, and the Pearl, the eastern boundary, the Caucasus, the Memento, the Vermilion, Bayou Teca, the Atchafalaya, the Boeuf, Bayou La Fourche, the Cortablo River, Bayou d'Arbonne, the Macon River, the Tensas, Amite River, the Tchefuncte, the Tickfaw, the Nat-Albany River, and a number of other smaller streams, constituting a natural system of navigable waterways, aggregating over 4,000 miles long. The state also has political jurisdiction over the approximately 3-mile-wide portion of subsea land of the inner continental shelf in the Gulf of Mexico. Through a peculiarity of the political geography of the United States, this is substantially less than the 9-mile-wide jurisdiction of nearby states Texas and Florida, which, like Louisiana, have extensive Gulf coastlines. The southern coast of Louisiana in the United States is among the fastest disappearing areas in the world. This has largely resulted from human mismanagement of the coast. At one time, the land was added to when spring floods from the Mississippi River added sediment and stimulated marsh growth. The land is now shrinking. There are multiple causes. Artificial levees block spring flood water that would bring fresh water and sediment to marshes. Swamps have been extensively logged, leaving canals and ditches that allow saline water to move inland. Canals dug for the oil and gas industry also allow storms to move sea water inland, where it damages swamps and marshes. Rising sea waters have exacerbated the problem. Some researchers estimate that the state is losing a land mass equivalent to 30 football fields every day. There are many proposals to save coastal areas by reducing human damage, including restoring natural floods from the Mississippi. Without such restoration, coastal communities will continue to disappear, and as the communities disappear, more and more people are leaving the region. Since the coastal wetlands support an economically important coastal fishery, the loss of wetlands is adversely affecting this industry. Climate: Louisiana has a humid subtropical climate. Perhaps the most classic example of a humid subtropical climate out of all the south-central states. It has long, hot, humid summers and short, mild winters. The subtropical characteristics of the state are due in large part to the influence of the Gulf of Mexico, which at its farthest point is no more than 200 miles away. Rain is frequent throughout the year, although the summer is slightly wetter than the rest of the year. There is a dip in precipitation in October. Southern Louisiana receives far more copious rainfall, especially during the winter months. Summers in Louisiana have high temperatures from mid-June to mid-September, averaging 90 degrees Fahrenheit or more, and overnight lows averaging above 70 degrees Fahrenheit. In the summer, the extreme maximum temperature is much warmer in the north than in the south, with temperatures near the Gulf of Mexico occasionally reaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit, although temperatures above 95 degrees Fahrenheit are commonplace. In northern Louisiana, the temperatures reach above 105 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. Temperatures are generally mildly warm in the winter in the southern part of the state, with highs around New Orleans, Baton Rouge, the rest of South Louisiana, and the Gulf of Mexico averaging 66 degrees Fahrenheit. The northern part of the state is mildly cool in the winter, with highs averaging 59 degrees Fahrenheit. The overnight lows in the winter average well above freezing throughout the state, with 46 degrees Fahrenheit the average near the Gulf and on average lower 37 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter in the northern part of the state. Louisiana gets some cold fronts, which frequently drop the temperatures below 20 degrees Fahrenheit in the northern part of the state, but almost never do so in the southern part of the state. Snow is not very common near the Gulf of Mexico, although residents in the northern parts of the state can expect 1 to 3 snowfalls per year, with the frequency increasing northwards. Louisiana's highest recorded temperature is 114 degrees Fahrenheit in Plain Dealing on August 10, 1936. While the coldest recorded temperature is -16 degrees Fahrenheit at Minden on February 13, 1899. Louisiana is often affected by tropical cyclones and is very vulnerable to strikes by major hurricanes, particularly the lowlands around and in the New Orleans area. The unique geography of the region, with the many bayous, marshes and inlets, can result in water damage across a wide area from major hurricanes. The area is also prone to frequent thunderstorms, especially in the summer. The entire state averages over 60 days of thunderstorms a year, more than any other state except Florida. Louisiana averages 27 tornadoes annually. The entire state is vulnerable to a tornado strike, with the extreme southern portion of the state slightly less so than the rest of the state. Hurricanes since 1950. August 28-29, 2012, Isaac hits southeast Louisiana 7 years after Katrina. September 1, 2008, Gustav made landfall along the coast near Cocoa Dry in southeastern Louisiana. As late as August 31, it had been projected by the National Hurricane Center that the hurricane would remain at Category 3 or above on September 1. But in the event, the center of Gustav made landfall as a strong Category 2 hurricane, and dropped to Category 1 soon after. As a result of NHC's forecasts, a massive evacuation of New Orleans took place after many residents having failed to leave for Katrina in 2005. A significant number of deaths were caused by or attributed to Gustav. Around 1.5 million people were without power in Louisiana on September 1. September 24, 2005, Rita struck southwestern Louisiana, flooding many parishes and cities along the coast, including Cameron Parish, Lake Charles, and other towns. The storm's winds weakened the damaged levees in New Orleans and caused renewed flooding in parts of the city. August 29, 2005, Katrina struck and devastated southeastern Louisiana, where it breached and undermined levees in New Orleans, causing 80% of the city to flood. Most people had been evacuated, but the majority of the population became homeless. The city was virtually closed until October. It is estimated that more than 2 million people in the Gulf region were displaced by the hurricane, and that more than 1,500 fatalities resulted in Louisiana alone. A public outcry criticized governments at the local, state, and federal levels for lack of preparation and slowness of response. Louisiana residents relocated across the country for temporary housing, and many have not returned. October 3, 2002, Lily. August 1992, Andrew struck south-central Louisiana. It killed 4 people, knocked out power to nearly 150,000 citizens, and destroyed crops worth hundreds of millions of dollars. August 1969, Camille caused a 23.4 feet storm surge and killed 250 people. Although Camille officially made landfall in Mississippi and the worst damage occurred there, it also had effects in Louisiana. New Orleans remained dry, with the exception of mild rain-generated flooding in the most low-lying areas. September 9, 1965, Betsy came ashore in Louisiana, causing massive destruction as the first hurricane in history to cause $1 billion in damage. The storm hit New Orleans and flooded nearly 35% of the city. The death toll in the state was 76. June 1957, Audrey devastated southwest Louisiana, destroying or severely damaging 60 to 80% of the homes and businesses from Cameron to Grand Chenier. 40,000 people were left homeless and more than 300 people in the state died. August 15 to 17, 1915, a hurricane made landfall just west of Galveston. Gales howled throughout Cameron and Vermilion parishes and as far east as Mobile, produced tides of 11 feet at Cameron, 10 feet at Grand Chenier, and 9.5 feet at Marsh Island. Grand Isle reported water 6 feet deep across the city. The lightkeeper at the Sabine Pass Lighthouse had to turn the lens by hand, as vibrations caused by the wave action put the clockwork out of order. At Sabine Bank, 17 miles offshore the mouth of the Sabine, damage was noted. Damage estimates for Louisiana and Texas totaled around $50 million. http://www.thecagans.com/lahurricanes.htm #August_15-17th, 1915, over 300 people drowned below Montague. 4 can be identified as white, none of the others have been identified and are assumed to be Indians. The Indian settlement was about 10 miles below Montague, called by the Indians Terrebonne, is now in swamp and can only be reached by boat. This hurricane caused the survivors to move to higher ground, protected areas. Owing to its location and geology, the state has high biological diversity. Some vital areas, such as southwestern prairie, have experienced a loss in excess of 98%. The pine flatwoods are also at great risk, mostly from fire suppression and urban sprawl. There is not yet a properly organized system of natural areas to represent and protect Louisiana's biological diversity. Such a system would consist of a protected system of core areas linked by biological corridors, such as Florida is planning. Louisiana contains a number of areas which are, in varying degrees, protected from human intervention. In addition to National Park Service sites and areas and a United States National Forest, Louisiana operates a system of state parks, state historic sites, one state preservation area, one state forest, and many wildlife management areas. The Nature Conservancy also owns and manages a set of natural areas. One of Louisiana's largest natural areas is Kissaki National Forest. It is some 600,000 acres in area, more than half of which is vital flatwoods vegetation, which supports many rare plant and animal species. These include the Louisiana pine snake and red-cockaded woodpecker. The system of protected cypress swamps around Lake Pontchartrain provides another large and important natural area, with southern wetland species including egrets, alligators, and sturgeon. At least 12 core areas would be needed to build a protected areas system for the state. These would range from southwestern prairies to the Pearl River floodplain in the east, to the Mississippi River alluvial swamps in the north. The Louisiana Natural and Scenic Rivers System provides a degree of protection for 48 rivers, streams and bays in the state. It is administered by the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. National Park Service. Historical scenic areas managed, protected, or otherwise recognized by the National Park Service include Atchafalaya National Heritage Area in Ascension Parish, Cane River National Heritage Area near Natchitoches, Cane River Creole National Historical Park near Natchitoches, Jean Lafitte National Historical Park and Preserve, headquartered in New Orleans, with units in St. Bernard Parish, Barretaria, and Acadiana. Poverty Point National Monument at Epes, Louisiana, and Saline Bayou, a designated national wild and scenic river near Wynne Parish in northern Louisiana. U.S. Forest Service. Kissaki National Forest is Louisiana's only national forest. It includes 600,000 acres in central and north Louisiana with large areas of flatwoods and longleaf pine forest. State parks and recreational areas. See also List of Louisiana state parks and List of Louisiana state historic sites. Louisiana operates a system of 22 state parks, 17 state historic sites and 1 state preservation area. Transportation. The Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development is the state government organization in charge of maintaining public transportation, roadways, bridges, canals, select levees, floodplain management, port facilities, commercial vehicles, and aviation, which includes 69 airports. The Intracoastal Waterway is an important means of transporting commercial goods such as petroleum and petroleum products, agricultural produce, building materials and manufactured goods. In 2011, Louisiana ranked among the 5 deadliest states for debris, litter, cause vehicle accidents per total number of registered vehicles and population size. Figures derived from the NTSHA show at least 25 persons in Louisiana were killed per year in motor vehicle collisions with non-fixed objects, including debris, dumped litter, animals and their carcasses.